Hello everybody, it is Deadly Nut of Butter here, bringing you a video because Outriders coming out in a few short days and I am an asshole with a Shure SM7B microphone. It's very nice, it's very nice. So I have opinions and I must broadcast them to the world because it matters to somebody. Maybe, I don't know, let's just get into it. Alright, I gotta be 100% honest. I am not that super hyped up about this game, even though it checks all the marks that I look for in a game like this. It's mainly a looter shooter, and that's mainly what I play. But it's just not something, it's just, I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't make me want to go, this is it. This is the game. This is the end all be all. I just give it to me now. And it's weird because like looter shooters right now, the content for them, they're kind of scarce. To sum up my impression of the story based on the demo, colonizers try to establish on a new planet and an alien cloud appears out of nowhere and either kills all the living beings that are in its path or turns them into something else. Why this happens is still a mystery. However, like I treat all looter shooters, it's not about the story, but about the gameplay and the loot. So far, I could say with 100% confidence that this game will be absolutely just... It's going to be just fine. This is going to be fine. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It is just going to be fine. I don't think it's going to take away from the majority of Destiny 2's player base and probably not even Division 2's player base either. I have this feeling because of what I think the end game will be like. Again, this is all purely speculative. I am not an ambassador. I'm just some asshole with a microphone with a reason to talk. That's about it. As you progress through the game, you gain experience that goes towards your character, but also something called world tiers. Each tier makes the enemies harder, but also makes the loot better. The demo caps out at world tier 5, which gives the player the ability to loot rare gear and equip it as well. At this tier, at least for me, it wasn't super hard or super easy. If I made a dumb mistake, there would be a good chance that I would die. However, I did do a bit of farming in the demo, got better gear, and memorized the enemy spawn location, which in turn made the World Tier 5 easier than when I first unlocked it. My gut feeling is it will be like this for all the world tiers. There will be a sudden jump in difficulty, and shortly after, it will be easier after the player finds better gear. And this is without even having to farm. This is just advancing through the storyline. Hopefully, Tier 10 and up won't be like this and remains challenging no matter what gear the player equips. Problem with a system like this that I kind of see is that it'll be kind of like Diablo 3. There'll be a whole lot of grinding for that right piece of gear that only moves the DPS needle. I believe that gear should not only make you more powerful, but also bring some type of new mechanic or playstyle in order for it not to seem monotonous. Diablo 3 had this problem. You found the gear that you needed before the end of the game, and at the end game, you were left farming for just the same gear, just with better numbers, just so you can move the DPS needle up a little bit. So let's say we beat Outriders at tier 10. We have the best gear for our dude, and the only way to get up to tier 15 is to farm for the same gear, just with better numbers so we can do more damage. That's going to get stale really quickly for a lot of players. Just look at Diablo 3. Plus, the way I understand it, the end game isn't going to be anything special either. Players can farm either the story content or farm something that's going to unlock after they beat the game called expeditions. The expeditions are timed missions and have their own special little tier system themselves, but the faster the player clears the missions, the better loot they receive. I'm kind of imagining something like strikes from Destiny. So far, there are 10 expedition missions, and everything about them, like the concept, it's just fine. But let's be real here. A majority of players are going to farm the mission that takes the shortest. However, this might be a little different if the loot scales with the mission length, but I'm going to say I'm just going to doubt that. Take Division 2, for example. Out of all the story missions to farm and all the checkpoints to farm, there are only certain ones that people will actually farm and play. I'm looking at you, Lincoln Memorial. I'm looking at you. You're a beautiful mission for farming because you're short and you have a lot of named guys and you drop a lot of loot. So I'll farm the shit out of you. If the loot does not scale with the mission length, then there is no incentive for the player to farm or even play that mission for the loot. Because why do a mission that takes, for example, an hour, gives the same loot as the mission that takes 45 minutes, or 30 minutes. There's just no reason to do it other than maybe they like it. But let's face it here, anyone who plays this game for the loot, like the Division 2, they're not interested in the design of the level. They're not interested in how fun it is. They just want the loot. The lack of any trade feature is also a bit annoying as well, and hopefully something they're able to implement later on down the road. I can think of one reason, it's a weak reason, but one reason why they decided to opt out of putting in a trade system. So I think that they think that a squad of 3 is going to have 3 individual classes as well as individual skill trees. Trickster gear that has mods that modify Trickster powers doesn't need to be traded to a Devastator. However, I would venture to guess that a good number of players are going to be in a squad with their friends who are all going to play the same class and maybe even the same skill tree set. Trading would make a lot of sense here in case a player gets a really good item that they already have. Instead of just scrapping or selling it, they could give it to one of their teammates. Outriders not having a trade system is not necessarily a deal breaker, but it would have been nice to see. The Division 2 doesn't have a trade system, but you can drop items if you're doing a mission together as a squad. Destiny 2, no trade system at all. I'm not imagining a trade system quite like Path of Exile, but at the very least, it would have been nice to be able to drop items to your teammates if you don't need that item. The skill trees in the game are relatively simple to understand, and I like how you don't have to follow them on a linear path. Pyromancer, for example, you can start moving your way towards Ashbreaker or also incorporate some of the skills from Firestorm. However, I am not a fan of how easy it is to reset the skill tree and reallocate the points. I'm not saying they should make it permanent, but they should at least make it cost something. For example, in Path of Exile, when a player wants to reallocate a skill point, they have to find an Orb of Regret or use one of their refund points. It's not a huge cost, but I think it would force the player to make their skill choice more purposefully and understand a bit more about the type of build they're going for. The gameplay and gunplay was, well, it was just fine as well. It didn't perform worse than the other looter shooters, but it wasn't any better either. I did notice one little thing about some of the guns in the game, and that was the recoil. Some of the recoil just seemed a bit off. It didn't feel right when I was shooting it, and it just started going off in another direction. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it very well, and it could just be because I haven't played a shooter in a while that I have to readjust to playing them. The cover-to-cover system also needs to be worked on really, really bad. At one point during my playthrough, I pressed space and my guy took off to get into cover 30 feet away behind some piece of wall. It was, I'll be honest, it was fucking annoying. In the end, I just opted out of not using the cover system at all. If I needed to get behind anything to get away from damage, I would just walk behind it and not engage with the actual system because it was that bad. A bright spot in all this is I do really enjoy using the powers in this game. I've only played the demo twice now, and each time I chose a vastly different class. My first go was with the Technomancer, which is more suited for long range, and the second was the Trickster, which is for more close range combat. I had way more fun with the Trickster class because of the powers. Technomancer was fine, but it was easy to hang back, pop the headshot damage for quick kills. Trickster forced me to get close, utilize multiple powers at once to gain maximum damage. It's also fun to slow down time and teleport around the map. Technomancer was a more traditional way of playing a shooting game, and the Trickster allowed me a little bit more creative with the approach of an area. I do plan out trying out the other two classes. I'll probably try out the Devastator and then Pyromancer. The tone of the story is a bit weird too. Earth is gone, the human race is on a strange planet, clouds of death and alien destruction is rolling through, civil war is happening, my ass was on ice for 30 fucking years, and this type of cutscene exists in the game.
Hold on, I got you!
Wait! Don't shoot! We're all in this together right now. I got you!
Lieutenant McCain, you alright? I'm alive. Thank you, soldier.
It's okay. Now, let's get the rest of my men out.
Fuck, seriously? War is war. What, you think we just hug it?
I feel like the tone just isn't quite matching what's happening in this world. I feel like it should be more serious, and I just think the writers are trying to be more humorous, but it's just not hitting the mark. There are a couple other instances in the demo as well, but this was the most jarring. It just seems like this is all that's left of the human race, and the value of human life is priceless. Overall, the demo left me with a feeling that the game will be just fine. Personally, I think that might be for the best because I get the feeling this game isn't meant to be like the other looter shooters out there. Like, they released a video showing the gear for the Pyromancer Witch build. It's a little too early to tell whether or not this is the best build for the class, but I did find it a bit odd that they released a little build guide before the game is even out. If it is the best build for this class, then that means all the other builds that people will make, that people will theorycraft, just won't be usable for the harder content the game has to offer. Even with that being a personal negative of mine, I still think that the game will be just fine. Maybe it's not supposed to be this looter shooter that you can sink hundreds of hours into hoping to get the best gear. Maybe it's not supposed to be a shooter where you spend hours looking at numbers trying to determine what gear would optimize your DPS. It's probably just supposed to be a fun game for players who enjoy building, and also a fun game for players who don't give a shit about any of that and just enjoy shooting shit and using alien superpowers. So I hope you liked this video of my impression of the demo and what I think the end game will be like for Outriders. And again, I am not super amped up about this game. I'm kind of excited about it simply because I want to play a new shooter game. It's got some cool loot. It's got some cool powers. But outside of that, it's just you know, it's just eh. In fact, I'm more excited about being able to utilize the DLSS technology in my 3090 graphics card. Can't wait to use it. My PC's balling. I want to get the most performance out of this as possible because the only other game I was looking forward to utilize that type of technology with was Cyberpunk 2077. And we all know how that shat the bed, didn't we? Anyways, if you liked my opinions here and you want to hear more of me, but in a live format, you can catch me right now at twitch.tv/deadlynutabutter. See you there.